Buying a business is the easy part, but building a scalable platform, that's where most operators get stuck. I'm Yassin Shaar, and over the last half decade, I've built shared service centers for private equity backed companies across the trades. And today, I'm joined by my co host Gyner Ozgul, a CEO who's led multiple platforms and used shared services to scale fast, stay lean, and deliver real results under pressure. This is the Shared Services Advantage, a series where we answer one critical question on each episode about how shared services helps private equity backed platforms grow faster, smarter, and with less chaos. So today's question is, why is shared services suddenly a top priority for so many portfolio company executives? So Geener, you've been deep in the trenches and you've seen firsthand how messy scaling can get without structure and how powerful it can be when you have the right systems in place. So before we break down maybe the three key trends we're seeing across the market, I want to start with you along the lines of, maybe what has changed over the last few years that has made shared services a must-have in your eyes as a platform CEO?
Yeah. Well, one thing before we start, a little bit on the words shared services.
Yep.
To our audience, shared services might mean corporate. It also might mean something like centralized operations. You might use different terms. The way we want to define shared services is a group of individuals in a function that works across businesses, right? In that function. So whether that be AP or AR or collections, or it could be dispatch or technician support, these functions tend to be able to be scalable. And that's the way we think about shared services.
I love it.
Operations or HQ. So I just wanted the audience has a bunch of different words for it. Like that's, to ground themselves in the discussion.
No, 100%. I mean, at the end of the day, it's, shared services is about consolidating and centralizing typically support functions in the back office, front office, middle office, that serves multiple internal customers. Can be outsourced, can be captive. And, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but in upcoming episodes, we'll talk about the different structures of shared services, and there's so many different permutations. So I'm excited to dive deep into that. But back to the key trends, maybe Geener, like what has changed for you over the last few years that made shared services a must-have for portfolio executives such as yourself?
Yeah. What if you think about it, the hybrid, it starts with the hybrid work, which really took hold during COVID about 5 years plus ago now, right? And it's not about like the bias. Obviously, I have a bias like everyone does on what hybrid or not, but that's not the objective here. But when hybrid occurred, the idea of scaling became more difficult, just because remote training is more difficult, right? And there are things like that have become a little bit more of an impediment to find team members that can help you scale your team faster in an environment that's highly competitive in the hybrid work, right? The fungibility of that shared service worker to be able to go from you to someone else and someone else in a year or two's time is real. It's a real thing now, right? So, to me, what hybrid did is it caused a new challenge of culture gapping, right? Which is, I used to be able to feel like I was part of the culture of the business, and it's a little harder, not impossible. I'm just saying the organization has the onus of developing the culture for a hybrid workforce, but most organizations haven't caught up and aren't able to do that really well. So that just means the worker kind of looks at it as a job every day and not being part of something greater. So there's a challenge there in terms of, some of the trends we're going to talk about that kind of leads as that and has become kind of the gas accelerator to some of the trends we're going to talk about.
I love it. So maybe let's double click and unpack, some of the, the major trends. And there are, three key trends that we're seeing across the board that are driving this shift. And, the first trend being, labor costs are rising, right? It's no secret. If you're in the market building a platform, talent is harder to find than ever. I mean, just to throw some stats at you, since 2020, wages have jumped over 21% in North America. At the same time, there's some research that shows that 70% of mid-market companies say they can't find even enough back office talent, let alone field service talent. We're talking about back office. We're talking about billing, collections, customer service, dispatch. It's harder to find than ever. So you're paying more for fewer people and often stretching your best folks too thin just to keep the lights on. So, really, shared services gives operators a way to scale without necessarily growing payroll one-to-one. It also opens up access to global talent, because when you're thinking shared services, you can think shared services not just at the local level. You can think shared services at a regional level, at the national level, even at the global level, right? Going offshore or near shore. So it really opens up access to global talent and frees up your onshore team to focus on higher value work. So maybe, Gyner, how maybe has that shown up in your world? Like, what labor or capacity constraints pushed you to look at shared services earlier than you might have planned?
Yeah, I mean, you hit on it. I mean, labor costs are rising and talent. And like I said, the accelerator was really when COVID happened, and it hasn't gotten easier, right? It's only, I would say it's gotten even more challenging as a headwind, right? To find onshore talent, to scale your businesses up. You're buying these businesses, and, like taking a real example, you're buying 2 or 3 businesses to build a platform. Each one of them has an accounting rep. Each of those accounting reps typically has some kind of a shared responsibility doing something else in the business, because these are entrepreneurial, founder-led businesses.
Yep.
Cash-based accounting, not accrual-based accounting.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're kind of stuck because the sum of the 3 businesses needs more focused accounting work, as an example, than those 3 folks can now handle, right? They can maybe handle some of the transactional kind of postings to the GL, but in terms of aggregating financials, making sure we have we're paying on time, or making sure our receivables are caught up, it becomes too much, right? So now the idea of building a shared service team at the right scale to overlay and support those businesses as you grow becomes a real thing. And it's challenging to find the folks to be able to do it, and they're more expensive and they're harder to find.
Absolutely, and which gets us to trend number 2, which is very related to rising labor costs, and that is value creation now depends more on operational improvement than really financial engineering. The old playbook where you cut cost, add leverage, and wait for multiple expansion. These days, are almost gone. It isn't enough anymore. Sponsors want to see a real transformation, and shared service is one of the few levers that does both. Yes, it can reduce SG&A by up to 75% if you're going offshore. But more importantly, as Gyner, you pointed out, it improves how the business actually runs. Faster close cycles, higher billing accuracy, fewer disputes, stronger compliance. So you're not just saving money, you're building a stronger operating model. So Gyner, maybe in your experience, how did shared services help you move from cleanup mode to like true operational improvement, and what kind of impact did that have on investor confidence, or maybe internal alignment, or value creation for the PE sponsor?
Yeah, so maybe I'll take 2 very specific ones from my past. One is we were challenged, as because you helped us with this one specifically, with supporting our technicians at scale. The whole idea of administrative burden on the technician and their ability to do like parts research being very, very simple, right?
Simple task, but time
billable time for a technician, and his ability to use his skills to go to 1 extra call every single day versus hanging on the phone, waiting for someone to answer to get him a part number so they could order and close the work order. There is such an inefficiency gap there that, we worked with an offshore team to help streamline that. And then we added incremental billing events, right? We started to see the utilization gap go up because now we could have the technicians focus on what they're good at, which is fix equipment, and less focus on what they really don't want to do, which is hang on the phone trying to find a partner, right? The second one I would give you was, we had third-party portals, and what I'm finding is in every industry, these TPAs or third-party administrators exist. And what ends up happening is,
it's a pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially what happened, and it got again accelerated during COVID, is a lot of end customers got rid of or downsized materially on their facilities management teams. So what did they do? They use a combination of software and third-party administrators to manage their facilities management,
which added complexity for the vendors to provide their services, and now you started needing to take into consideration the cost of service to just like train your team on hundreds of portals or tens of portals.
Correct. Well, it gets even more complex, right? Because the customer says, well, why should I pay you more? I just added this place where you just need to upload your work order, because it seems simple, right? And it might be if you're an entrepreneur who does 3 or 4 work orders a day. But if you're a regional, a super regional, or a very large independent player that does hundreds or thousands of work orders a day, it can cripple your business, right? So now you're looking to figure out how can you outsource, offshore, whatever the right word is, right? Because everyone uses different words, or scale, which is a more important word, the right resources to be able to fill that requirement, keep that customer happy, make sure your billing gets done appropriately and all your paperwork gets filed, and meet the new for that customer. Like, this is who I am going forward, and this is what I'm going to use.
Absolutely. So it's not just about slashing costs, but it's about how can you achieve operational excellence, which gets me to trend number 3. Which is really, especially if you are aggressively pursuing an M&A growth strategy, in these cases, fragmentation can kill scale. Every acquisition brings a new way to do billing, a new way to do payroll, dispatch, collection, you name it. And without standardization, every step forward adds more chaos. Every acquisition adds just another a slew of variables. So we've seen platforms with 4 or 5 add-ons still reconciling manually across brands, different systems. Everyone has their own QuickBooks and no visibility into true performance. Taking them literally a month to close the books. Just like pure chaos. So shared services really helps clean that up early. It gives you a repeatable playbook to plug new brands into without reinventing the wheel every time. So maybe, Gyner, like, what kind of fragmentation have you run into post-acquisition when it's time to integrate? And maybe how has shared services helped you bring order to the chaos?
Yeah. So kind of looping back to where I started a little bit, what happens is you find in all these entrepreneur-led businesses that there are a number of individuals who share the responsibilities of multiple roles in an organization. So they could be the accountant, they could be the collector, they could be the dispatcher, they could be the tech support person, they could be the office person, right? They got all these connections, right? In some cases, frankly, they're a salesperson. And all of a sudden at scale, it becomes really tough for them to do one of those roles or commit to one of those roles for a period of time, and it becomes a choke point. Right? Because you're adding maybe sales firepower to that business, and they're growing, and now the administration is kind of relying on this one person, and she or he cannot handle the whole thing. Yeah. So now you're choked. So what you typically do is say, okay, now I'm going to take that role out of all of these organizations, whatever that role is, right? And remember, to the folks listening, benefit of the doubt, we're not looking to extract that role, right? We're looking to grow and scale the business, right? So that person, what I've done in the past is reallocate them to focus on something that adds value to the business, something like relationship building, making sure that locally the technicians are taken care of and they got all their parts. There is a lot of things they can help you with locally that will help build that business, right? Exactly. But when you take away an accounting function, let's just say AP for a second, you take that role away from that person and the 2 other respective businesses we talked about. Now you have you could potentially bring 1 or 2 people in a shared service group to handle all 3 of those businesses, and potentially 2 or 3 more as you buy in, right? On day 1. So that's where, and if you're fragmented and you leave all 3 to 5 of those businesses kind of operating the way they operate, your month-end closes become a problem, your AR becomes a problem, your ability to manage your cash flows becomes a problem because your AP
Customer
becomes a
service and just
problem.
taking in work orders, right? And just like getting
Problem.
that same experience across,
Yeah.
the region or yeah,
Yeah.
any location.
I think what's really important to understand is fragmentation here also means something like, hey, everybody kind of does it their own way. So the ability to forecast the business, which is really important to a platform, becomes very difficult, right?
Yeah.
The forecasting of the sales pipeline, the forecasting of the AP, the forecasting of the AR and your cash flows, all that's difficult when you take all those functions and leave them alone, in air quotes,
Exactly.
right?
And not to mention also the customer experience and the technician experience, how it suffers. If someone calls your office in Florida, they get a very different experience, very different service if someone calls your office in Oregon.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's the why. Why shared
The why.
services has become a top priority for so many operators, and why more teams are making it part of the plan earlier in the whole period, not just as an afterthought. In fact, we have CFOs who are literally bringing us in to help them design shared services on the first month of the platform creation, to make sure that they're setting themselves up for success and for scale. So in the next episode, we're going to shift gears from the why to the what and answer the key questions. What does shared services actually look like inside a real platform? So we'll break down the models, the team structures, and what it really takes to stand one up with speed and control. And if you've got questions or maybe even lessons from the field, please do drop them in the comments, send us a message or share your story. Would love to pull in real world questions into future episodes as we go. So that's it for episode number 1, and we'll see you on episode 2. Thank you, Gyner.
Thank you.